mugwumps. They're everywhere. They're speaking out. At board meetings, City Hall, Town Square, Courthouse, State House, even the White House. They must be stopped. They are disruptors.
Welcome, everyone, to Mugwump Media. Welcome to a very warm midsummer Disruptor Central. Kevin, thanks for turning the fan on.
Well, we got it. Might as well use it. We got our air. We got fans. We got everything.
Air conditioning's good.
Yes, air conditioning and moving air.
I know. We didn't have air conditioning till we were 31 years old.
Yeah.
We're like dinosaurs. Everybody, it's like, you got to have air conditioning. We didn't for years. We sweated a lot.
Our first air conditioner was in our Ford Bronco.
We'd go for a drive on Sunday because it was so hot that we would just cool off in the car. Of course, then you spent money on gas, so.
It was worth it.
It was worth it. Yeah, very good. Well, Kevin, this has been a very interesting last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of information coming out, a lot of things happening. Some really good tidbits of information, and I saved some of them up. And some of them are things that have just happened over the last week or so, and some of it's Missouri news. And I thought that you would enjoy having that positive update. So I thought we would bring that to you today. Now, first of all, right off the bat, I'm going to talk about the RFK update that I've got for you guys. Now, right around July 1st, and I don't know if you guys saw the Tucker Carlson interview that RFK did. But he actually had an interview with Tucker Carlson on his show, and as Kennedy often does, if any of you guys, I watch him, I like him. He's neat. He's honest. He's true. He's a Democrat. There's things I probably wouldn't like about him if I knew him personally. I wouldn't agree with him socially, but I very much enjoy watching how he's doing things and how methodical and very logical he is. So anyway, as Kennedy often does in random interviews, just before he comes out with drops a bomb on everybody, he'll drop little tidbits of information that clues you in as to what he's going to say. You've noticed this, haven't you, Kevin?
He likes to build things up, lay a foundation.
Maybe that's it, or maybe he just can't help himself. He just says it. I don't know.
He's definitely invested in what he's doing.
I think it's part of he's honest, you know? That's one of the things I like about him. Anyway, he dropped a bombshell, which I have a feeling is only a foretaste of what's going to happen in September, whenever he comes out and presents his findings on this epidemic of chronic disease and autism that he has promised in September. Now, the subject of RFK's remarks in this interview was a 1999 CDC study of the effects of one of the hepatitis vaccines, and I never could find whether it was A or B. It was one of them. But it was a hepatitis vaccine that they would receive early in their vaccine schedule as a child, a baby, on very young children. Now, what I'm going to read to you is the bulk of RFK's comments concerning this on Tucker's show. I picked it apart for you. Here's what he said. What would you do if you wanted to find the answer? You would compare the outcomes in a fully vaccinated group to health outcomes in an unvaccinated group. The CDC did that study in 1999. They brought in a team of scientists under a Belgian researcher named Thomas Verstraeten. They looked at the data. They looked at children who had received the hepatitis vaccine within the first 30 days of life. And they compared those results to the children who had received the vaccine later or not at all. They found, get this is shocking. They found an 1,135% elevated risk of autism among the vaccinated children.
That's a big number.
I was blown away. I couldn't even believe it. I had to go back and listen to it a couple of times
that's not a misprint.
To see if I was missing something.
Not a misprint. That's
true.
Wow.
And it shocked them. You can imagine why. They kept the study secret. and they manipulated it through 5 different iterations to try to bury the link. Now, he does a lot of fancy talking. He went to school a lot. Mm-hmm. Maybe he read the dictionary.
He may have. I've known some people that read the dictionary when they was a kid.
I know. So by iterations, and I actually looked it up just to make sure I was right. Now, by iterations, RFK is describing the act of repeating the process with the aim of achieving a desired goal, outcome, or result. Basically just doing it and arranging it and rearranging it to try to make it look better than it is. Right? Isn't that what you get, Kevin?
Manipulation.
Right. And then here's what he said. And we know how they did it. In other words, manipulated. They essentially got rid of all the older children and just had younger children who were too young to be diagnosed. They stratified the data, there's another big word, and all of those results were subjected to that kind of trickery. Now, by stratified, he means to arrange or classify something into different groups based on specific characteristics or attributes. More of the manipulation, trying to make it look a little different than it is.
Stacking the deck, so to speak.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, these were all little kids. So that was what he said. 1,135% elevated risk, and this was within the first 30 days of life. And I actually need to really take a deep dive. I didn't do it on this one because I had too much information. We might do it on another one, but you guys know if your moms and dads or grandmas and grandpas and you either watch your daughter or your son or you go do it yourself, they have a boatload of shots, so many more than when my kids were little, that they forced them to take all at once. That's been part of his complaint. He said, why would you give these shots to these little kids all at once? Why would you, if you're going to give it to them, spread them out? But this is some of his complaints. Now, according to RFK, it was so damaging, this study that they hid and manipulated, that they chopped up and rearranged the data and even removed the oldest children in the study so that only the results of the tiniest babies who were too young to be diagnosed, that's disgusting, Kevin, were left in the study. And what was the outcome that they were striving for? Well, that early childhood vaccinations were not linked to autism, of course. Now, remember that RFK had promised from the very beginning when he was first put in office that he was going to get to the bottom of the autism update, or epidemic rather. And he had made that statement that he'll deliver the results of his investigation in September. He said that several times that I've heard him say. Fast forward now to the July 4th weekend. This was a couple of weeks later. A document obtained, this is something different, a document obtained by a whistleblower mysteriously appeared. Kevin, there are whistleblowers coming out of the woodwork these days.
Well, there's people that know stuff, apparently.
I think I'd be scared at this point to be a whistleblower.
Somebody saw them stacking the deck.
Right. Now, according to reports, this memo, whose authenticity is still being reviewed, was leaked from, this is a big name, from the Biotechnology Innovation Organization's Vaccine Policy Steering Committee.
Even the acronym would be a long word.
I know, it's a mouthful. This memo reveals a $2 million, basically hit campaign, apparently outlining a strategy to lobby members of Congress, manipulate the American public, and execute a multi-pronged plan to discredit RFK Jr. And of course, you know that they want to get him removed from office by September. If they can get him out of there beforehand and make him look like a wingnut, like a nut job, if they can do that, then they don't have to worry about him. So that's the plan. So before he reveals what he knows about this explosion of autism, the memo details plans to deploy surrogates, and that concerns me. I wonder who they were trying to line up and bribe. But to deploy surrogates, possibly someone like Dr. Oz, maybe the American Enterprise Institute, to pose a neutral or opposing voice to counter RFK Jr. Another option is to launch a Why We Vaccinate campaign on TV, radio, and other media sources, other places. Now, this multi-million-dollar effort would seek to publicly discredit RFK Jr. by labeling him as a conspiracy theorist, a nut, who knows nothing about science or medicine. And honestly, Kevin, if they do this, they're running a psyop.
Yep.
That's what they're doing. It's a well-planned and coordinated psyop, if this is true, that they would be running on the American people to try to turn us against the Maha mission and messaging, make America healthy again. And the ultimate discrediting of Kennedy would be to divide the relationship, his partnership, really. If you guys have heard him talk about Trump, he admires him, that he has with Trump. Now, who would be involved in this seemingly diabolical plan, Kevin?
Well, I'm sure there's some characters that'd be willing to go ahead and, well, they're probably looking for a paycheck.
Follow the money, Kevin. Well, according to this whistleblower's report, the usual nefarious characters that you would expect. Pharmaceutical agents, giants, like Pfizer, Merck, Novavax, and others. They don't want stricter safety standards. They don't want vaccine transparency. They don't want liability restoration, especially they don't want to have to pay lawsuits when people get sick or develop autism. And they don't want transparent data for parents. They don't want to wake up the sleeping people. They want to make sure that they can just make money off of our illness and go on. These big corporations, they have a lot of profit to lose. Billions and billions of dollars. Now, when I searched both the CDC and the HHS website over the last day or two for the actual data showing the percentage of cases in the U.S., folks, I was shocked. And I'm cynical anyway about some of this stuff, but even I was shocked. I didn't know it was this bad. Now, data was available, and this is on their official websites, the CDC. Data was available for every year for the last 25 years since 2000. Now, in 2000, the ratio of children developing autism was 1 in 150. 10 years later, by 2010, the ratio had risen to 1 in 68. Now, 15 years later, in 2025, the ratio is 1 in 31. I don't like those odds, Kevin.
That's pretty serious change.
And to parse it down a little further, California, of course, has the highest autism rate in the nation. 1 in 22 4-year-olds, these are babies. 1 in 22 4-year-old children in California are on the autism spectrum. Nationwide, mostly boys are affected by it. Did you know that?
I did not know that. That's disturbing.
Yeah. In 2025, nationwide, 1 in 20 boys are afflicted with this.
Sounds like it might be time to get a few millstones out and start tying them around a few necks.
Oh, I know. Well, they cheated to not have this known. And here's the truly shocking thing that I found on the CDC website. In California, Kevin, 1 in 12.5 boys are now autistic.
Not acceptable.
On the HHS website, this was a statement by RFK Jr. The autism epidemic has now reached a scale unprecedented in human history because it affects the young. The risks and the costs of this crisis are 1,000 times more threatening to our country than COVID-19. Boy, isn't that the truth. Autism is preventable, and it is unforgivable that we have not yet identifying the underlying causes. We should have had these answers 20 years ago. Truth and common sense. Kevin, does that sound like a nut job conspiracy theorist to you?
No, it does not. It sounds like
a reasonable man.
We live in an age of miracles. there's really not any reason for very many
for this to happen.
Yeah, to be
Absolutely.
ill or harmed at all.
I agree. He just wants to find it. Now, one more side note on this subject, and this makes me mad, and I think this will make you mad. Does anyone think that it's strange that the epicenter of this autism crisis seems to be in California? Now, why would that be, you ask? Well, I'm just going to throw this thought out there. This is something else I found. California, with its liberal one-party state government, doesn't allow personal or religious exemptions from the required child vaccine schedule. And that would be for school and daycare. If you want to go to school there, if you want to go to daycare there, and I believe now they're even making it, they're cracking down. I think homeschoolers don't have to do it. But other than that, if you're going to school, and I think it may have even already extended to private schools. But basically, no personal or religious exemptions. They're forced to do it. And medical exemptions only if you manage to jump through all the state's red tape hoops and convince a doctor to fill out all the paperwork required to meet specific criteria set by the CDC, ACIP, and AAP, whatever those are. The bottom line is, folks, in California, these vaccines are basically shoved down people's throats. They're forced on them. They really don't have a choice. These skyrocketing autism numbers, Kevin, I'm thinking they're not a coincidence.
It's sounding suspicious for sure.
Yep. We'll follow up later whenever we hear more about what's going on with Mr. Kennedy. And you know what, Kevin? I'm ready for some good news, the second part of this.
I like good news.
Oh, we got some good news to tell you. Now, first on the good news agenda. On Tuesday, July 8th, LifeSite News posted this headline. IRS says churches can now endorse political candidates to congregations in major decision. The IRS agreed that churches do not intervene or participate in political campaigns when they endorse candidates to their own congregations in a settlement with Christian groups filed on Monday. Isn't that amazing?
Well, that's awesome.
Oh, it is awesome.
Yes.
Now, it's not completely settled. I was listening to a show the other day, and this was basically just an agreement that Trump's IRS, of course, it's a whole different story than when Biden was running it. Let me tell you, that's when a lot of this happened. But basically, they came to an agreement that they're not going to come after him anymore, but it's still going to have to be codified in law. There was a lawsuit. They've agreed. They've come to a settlement, but now there's going to have to be an agreement. So pray about that, folks. It should work out. It should be fine. But we need to make sure that this is codified into law so that if some other nut job gets in as president through cheating or whatever, that we don't end up with this mess again. And another cool thing I haven't, and I'll just touch on this quickly. There were it wasn't just these religious groups. There were Grace Church in St. Louis. Did you know that in 2024, all the way back to 2022, the IRS were snooping? This is a church in St. Louis. We met them.
Yes.
Up there at the Capitol. They were great. They were some of them holding up signs for Justin Sparks. They were great. But basically, they're a very patriotic church. They are. And according to the article that I read, the IRS had notified them that on their website, there was signs of political activity. So they were investigating them and have been for the last couple of years. It was dropped when Trump took over. Grand Canyon University, they were being investigated out the wazoo for their, bringing people in, their policy of bringing people into their college, and they were investigating them for that, and now they've dropped theirs also. So, and there was another college that also, same thing, it was dropped, but this has all happened since Trump has gotten into power. So that's a good thing. Now, next up, On Friday, July 11th, this headline hits. More good news. Tariff windfall drives surprise $27 billion U.S. budget surplus in June. I was amazed.
Oh.
Kevin and I were out. I was sitting outside of he went into a gun store, and I was sitting out listening to the radio, and I was amazed. I was taking a drink of soda, and I about choked. I couldn't believe it. Pretty awesome.
I like surplus.
I know. For the first time in 20 years, we've actually had a surplus.
Land of plenty.
Yeah,
Land
a
of
record.
opportunity.
I know. A record high tariff haul in June fueled a rare budget surprise and set the stage for even bigger collections ahead. This is Trump's tariffs. And how many of these nutcases, these fearmongers, were howling about how he was just going to put the country out of business and how we were just going to suffer and we were going to fall apart and go into a major decline and all kinds of stuff.
Gloom and doom.
Oh, I know. And here we are.
Everything's awful.
And I love this. This is great because it compares it to the last year. June's haul, called it a haul, marked a significant jump from May's prior record of $22 billion and was about 93% higher than the $56 billion collected during the same 9-month span of the previous year. Can we say the Biden years?
We can say the Biden years, but we can say
93%. That is out of this world.
Yep.
Anyway, love that. And I knew you guys probably had heard that, but I didn't know if you'd heard the details. But it's the tariffs. That's exactly what it is. Doge may have helped some, but I think it's the tariffs. Then, on July 14th, this news broke. 6-3. The Supreme Court allows Trump to proceed with his plan to dismantle the Department of Education.
Dismantle might have, yeah.
Right,
that
dismantle.
Might work too, yeah.
Now, folks, I know that many people, probably a lot of them who are listening to this podcast, are probably a little squeamish. I mean, we've gone through a couple of generations, 2 or 3 generations now. Kevin and I went to school in the 60s and 70s, and the Department of Education was not created until, I think it was 1979 by President Jimmy Carter. Not sure why he did it, maybe to please the teachers union, I don't know, but basically it was created by him. And we've got a couple of generations that came after us that don't know anything different. But I'm telling you, this is a good thing. And I know people are probably panicking and thinking, well, how is everything going to be cared for? It will. Trump has already said he's going to be block granting back to the state. All this money, this has irritated me for years, that we've given all this money to Washington, D.C. through the state, and then lo and behold, they send it back okay for school, but it has all these little puppet strings attached to it. And if you don't do exactly what they want, and if you don't jump through their little hoops and obey their progressive agenda, and this has become increasingly so in the last few years, and I think that is what has driven this, is people just being sick of having their money used against them to drive this agenda. Anyway, I know there's some people that are a little nervous, maybe some teachers. I'm telling you, I think this is going to be a renaissance, Kevin, of private schools and Christian schools popping up. There's going to be teachers' jobs everywhere. And I think, folks, that we're not going to have to worry about these horrible schools where they treat teachers horribly. They don't pay them as much. Basically, all the money is going to all the upper crust, right?
It seems to be a bureaucracy.
Yes, it's a bureaucracy. And I think there's going to be a renaissance in schooling. I think the freedom is going to be amazing. Anyway, the history, the current shape that our education is in, like I said, 1979, Jimmy Carter, Department of Education. And honestly, we have not bettered our educational system, folks. It has not been bettered. Again, I did a deep dive over the last day or so, and I looked up some numbers. Now, overall, it's estimated that we spend nearly $1 trillion a year on our public school system in the U.S., which averages out, get this, Kevin, to about $18,614 per student annually. That's a boatload of money. I'm just saying. Meanwhile, 70% of our students can't hit their grade level benchmarks in reading and math. We send our money to Washington, D.C., and like I said, it comes back with progressive strings attached. It's time for change, folks.
Yes.
It's time for something different, for sure. Trump has already announced plans to block grant, and with the passage of the big, beautiful bill, I don't know if you've heard this, Kevin, but the 529 College Savings Plan, and apparently it already existed, but it's now going to be expanded. It's going to be expanded to include K through 12 expenses, such as private school tuition and homeschooling cost, and it also provides dollar for dollar tax credits to encourage individuals to donate to scholarship granting organizations. Now, what that means, people who have a lot of money, people who own businesses are always looking for tax shelters. They're going to look for something like this because it's dollar for dollar. That means they can write it all off of their taxes. It's going to benefit them. It's going to encourage them to donate to this fund. These organizations will then distribute the funds as scholarships to families, enabling them to choose private schools or homeschooling options. And like I said, when this starts to come about, this availability, this is going to be like sowing seeds. I think there's going to be a renaissance in schooling. And I think that these organizations are going to pop up, and you're going to be able, just like you go and apply for a college loan, I think you'll be able to go and apply for scholarships. You'll just have to get plugged in and figure out where to go. In a nutshell, the bill essentially creates a school voucher program funded by tax credits to support families in choosing private schools and other education opportunities with no strings. I'm very excited about that, and I'm eager to learn more. Now, that's good news nationally. Now, we're going to end with some good news, good Missouri news, Kevin. Over the last few days, Missouri Governor Kehoe, yes, I know, I call him Spendthrift Kehoe. He and I wouldn't be buddies, I don't think, but you know what? He signed these bills, and this is a good thing. He signed 2 bills that include some important legislation for homeschool families. Missouri Senate Bill 33 got rid of the Declaration of Enrollment. Yeah, the Declaration of Enrollment has caused many headaches over the years for homeschool families. Basically, it is a signed, written declaration of intent of parents to homeschool their children, which they could turn into the school when they decided to withdraw their child. I don't know why it's even suggested they do it. It's not legal. I mean, they don't have to do it, but it's something in the description, the legislation, that they can do it. Well, you know what happens? Apparently, schools, they hire somebody to sit in the office and fill out paperwork. You know what happened? The schools looked at it and they thought, well, this has got to be signed before they can take their kids. I know that. I can see it now. I know that's what happened. So basically, like I said, it was voluntary, never legally required, but many schools became aggressive, threatening to refer parents to the local prosecutor and using other intimidation tactics to get parents to sign. Go figure. So here's the bad thing. Once they signed and gave it to the school, parents were forced every year, badgered, until they signed another one. They had to do it year upon year if they ever signed once, which was voluntary. Guess what? That is now done away with completely. Good riddance to that. Last and certainly not least, on July 9th, Governor Kehoe signed Senate Bill 63, which requires all school districts in Missouri. Thank you, Jesus. This is. I love this one. This is my favorite of the night. To allow all school districts in Missouri to allow homeschooled athletes to try out for school sports teams with no strings attached. Folks, the old law, the old rule, this made me so mad. We've got kids that are excellent in sports, our grandkids. They weren't allowed to play because, well, you know, they didn't have to, and the schools didn't have to let them try out, even though we have to pay taxes. And boy, do we pay a lot of taxes. Maybe the taxes should be voluntary. What do you think, Kevin?
I like the thought of voluntary taxes, but it might wind up being an issue.
It was discrimination is what it was.
Yep.
Basically, we were good enough to take the money from, but they were not going to allow, if we opted out of their education, they weren't going to allow our grandkids and kids to play sports on their teams. Now, our school in our area did allow it, but they made them jump through hoops. They forced them to take some of the school classes, which my daughter didn't want them to. That's why she pulled them out of school. So basically, it was kind of a catch-22. And like I said, the law previously said that any school district in Missouri could choose if it wanted to allow homeschool students to participate in its school activities. They were allowed to discriminate. If they opted in, students would have to take at least 2 classes at the high school to qualify. That horrible, discriminatory bill is gone. Hallelujah, good riddance. And may the good athletes, the homeschool athletes, be able to participate in Jesus' name. Kevin, do you have a thought on any of that before we close?
No, I like the good news. I like, you know what, I'm not thinking that this could go bad anyway. You know what, we've got it looks like there's maybe an opportunity for partnerships. You know, it's not us competing against different communities here.
Yeah.
It's us competing with ourselves and
Absolutely.
our own dollars. And those tax dollars are for the kids, for the
Yes.
education. And you know what, if you've got an opportunity, you have the ability to teach your kid to be
Yes.
anything. You know what, we
Yes.
should be allowed to teach our own children.
Yes.
And public schools,
And
great.
not be
Sometimes
punished.
we need help.
And not be discriminated against. If we're good enough to pay tax dollars to your school, then you better let our kids participate in things. Yeah.
Should be a partnership and not
Absolutely.
a requirement.
Yeah. No, I agree.
We all want our kids to be educated. I'm sure there's a few parents that neglect their kids, but you know
Yeah.
what? The community has always stepped up.
Oh, yeah.
There's plenty of money there. It's just a matter of figuring out how to work together.
I agree.
And accomplish the best for the kids. It's not about
Yes.
us. It's not about our dollars. We don't mind spending them. It's about the
Right.
kids and what's best for them.
Yep. And our local school did not say, no, you can't participate. They just made them do classes, but there were some who didn't. They chose to discriminate. Anyway, well, folks, sorry. I get a little animated. I tell you, I love those grandkids. They're pretty awesome. Thanks for joining us today. And, this is all good news. Honestly, Kevin.
We're living in an age of miracles.
This
and
is
there's
all
all
good
kinds
news.
of opportunities, and we're seeing things shift back to better times, I think.
Kevin, I think we're getting what we voted for
Yes.
for the most part, for sure.
It's a
Thank you,
long
Jesus.
uphill road.
Oh, thank you, Jesus, for answered prayer
Just stick to
in
it.
November.
Yes.
I'm so glad. So good. Now, folks, we'll be back again next week. And, we're always going to try to bring you something relevant, bring you something that you need to hear, something uplifting, sometimes things that make you mad. But all of those things are valuable because it inspires us and it spurs us on to do what we need to do and to pray. Prayer is good, Kevin.
Yes.
Well,
Necessary.
we'll be back again next week, and we hope you'll join us then. I think we've got an awesome interview for next week, so I'm looking forward to that. And whenever when you come to and join us, whenever you tune in, get you a cup of coffee, put your feet up, enjoy. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe so we can spread the message to everybody. And we're going to be bringing you more conversation, more news, hopefully more encouragement, and we're always going to try to keep you informed, inspired, and folks, always stay independent. Definitely think for yourselves. You have a good Sunday. God bless.